My name is Jack Morrison, and I'm 71 years old. I'm writing this from my cabin in Montana, where my son thinks I spend my days watching old westerns and sorting through boxes of memories. He does not know that I'm finally ready to tell the truth about what happened to me 40 years ago. In the summer of 1984, I helped a Bigfoot family escape a forest fire. The official story was that I got separated from my crew and sheltered alone in a cave system until the flames passed. My supervisors accepted this explanation. My ex-wife believed it. Even my son, Michael, who was 6 at the time, eventually stopped asking why I came back different. But I was never alone in that cave. I spent 18 hours underground with creatures that most people believe are myths. I was trapped there at first, cut off by walls of flame. But I stayed by choice, learning lessons about humanity that I've carried like stones in my pockets ever since. People ask me why I'm telling this now, after keeping silent for 4 decades. The answer is simple. I am losing my memory. The dementia started 6 months ago and is progressing faster than anyone expected. I have maybe 2 years left before I forget everything, possibly less. My son found something last week while helping me pack belongings. A bracelet I have worn under my sleeve for 40 years. He examined it carefully and knew immediately it was not mine, not human-made. He deserves the truth. Maybe you do too. I was a firefighter, specialized in wildland operations. I spent years fighting fires in remote wilderness areas, leading hotshot crews into conditions that would kill most people. It was dangerous work, technical and intense, perfect for someone trying to forget that his marriage had collapsed and his son barely knew him. I threw myself into firefighting with the kind of desperation that people mistake for dedication. I worked harder than anyone, often taking risks my crews questioned, chasing promotions and glory. I told myself I was saving lives. Really, I was running from everything I had broken. In July of 1984, I found something that was not supposed to exist. A young Bigfoot trapped by flames in an area I'd been assigned to protect. Something about the moment felt impossible. Too surreal, too deliberate. But I helped anyway. That decision changed everything. I spent 18 hours in darkness with Bigfoot families who watched me with eyes more human than animal. Creatures who grieved and thought and taught me things about my own species that I wish I did not know. A family that was fleeing, just like I had been fleeing my whole life. I never took photographs. I destroyed my field notes. I kept the location secret as I promised I would. For 40 years, I have carried this truth, visiting the site dozens of times but never telling a soul. Until now. This is what happened during that fire. This is what I learned. This is why some mysteries should stay buried, and why I'm breaking that rule anyway. I was 31 in 1983. Recently divorced and professionally ambitious in that hollow way people are when they're trying to fill a void with achievement. My marriage to Linda had ended badly, not because of affairs or dramatic fights, but because we had simply stopped seeing each other as anything more than roommates who shared a son. Michael took it hard. He was 5 when Linda and I separated, at that age where everything feels like the end of the world. The custody arrangement gave Linda primary custody. I got every other weekend and holidays, which felt like a mercy at the time. I was not ready to be a full-time father. I'd never really been ready. Linda was a teacher, stable and present in ways I had never managed. Michael needed stability. I told myself I was doing the right thing by stepping back, by letting him have the parent who showed up to school events and cooked actual meals instead of eating protein bars in fire camps. The truth was simpler and uglier. I chose my work because it was easier than choosing him. My career focused on wildland firefighting in the Pacific Northwest. I led a hotshot crew, 20 elite firefighters who deployed to the worst fires in the region. We hiked into remote areas, cut fire lines by hand, slept on the ground for weeks at a time. Most had been mapped by the early 80s, but there were still wild areas, places too remote or too dangerous to protect. I wanted to conquer those places. I applied for the hardest assignments, pushed my crews beyond normal limits, spent weeks away from civilization with only my radio and my reputation. The Forest Service loved it. Solo leadership from someone willing to take risks made for good publicity. They did not ask too many questions about my methods or my drinking. I worked with intensity because I preferred it that way. No family obligations, no one to witness how many hours I could spend planning fire strategy without thinking about my son. Out there, with my tools and my crew, everything made sense. Fire did not lie. Smoke did not judge. The flames did not care that I was a terrible father. The summer of 1983 into '84 was brutal. Drought conditions created tinderbox forests across the region. Lightning strikes ignited fires faster than crews could contain them. I worked non-stop from June through September, barely seeing Michael at all. I had 3 major fires that season, each one more dangerous than the last. The first 2 we contained with minimal losses. The third was different. The Marble Creek fire started in July in a remote section of the Bitterroot Range. Multiple ignition points, erratic winds, steep terrain. The kind of fire that kills firefighters. I volunteered to lead my crew into the worst sector. I have had 40 years to regret that decision. The assignment came through on a Tuesday morning. Marble Creek Fire, Northern Sector, protection of a small research station, and prevention of the fire, jumping a critical ridgeline. My crew and I loaded into trucks and headed into wilderness that most people would never see. We hiked in with a week of supplies, food, water, tools, everything we needed to cut fire lines and hold ground against the advancing flames. The research station sat in a valley, surrounded by dense forest, with only one road in and out. I could feel something wrong immediately. Too quiet. The normal forest sounds were absent, replaced by an eerie stillness that made my instincts scream. My crew felt it too. Nobody said anything, but I saw them checking their escape routes more frequently than usual. We set up base camp near the station. 3 scientists were packing equipment, preparing to evacuate. They told us they had seen strange things in the days before the fire. Trees marked with stacked rocks, massive footprints near their water source, something large moving through the forest at night. I dismissed it as stress and fear. People see things when fires approach. Smoke plays tricks on your mind. I told them to finish evacuating and let us do our job. That night, after the scientists left, I walked the perimeter alone. Standard procedure, checking our lines, assessing wind patterns. The smoke was getting thicker, the glow on the horizon brighter. We had maybe 2 days before the fire reached us. That is when I saw the first real sign. A tree, deliberately stripped of bark in a pattern I did not recognize. Below it, rocks stacked in a cairn, precise and intentional. This was not bare activity. This was not human either. I stood there, headlamp illuminating the marking, trying to process what I was seeing. Territorial boundary, warning, communication from something intelligent. The rational part of my brain insisted I was wrong, that this was natural formation or old logging marks. But my instincts knew better. My instincts recognized the work of hands, of thought, of purpose. I heard something then. Movement in the darkness beyond my light, not deer, not elk. Something much larger, moving with deliberate caution. I swept my headlamp across the trees, trying to penetrate the shadows. Nothing revealed itself, but I knew, with the certainty that comes from years in wilderness, that I was being watched. I returned to camp and said nothing to my crew. What would I tell them? That something was out there, something that marked trees and stacked rocks? They would think the smoke was getting to me. That night, I lay in my sleeping bag and listened to sounds in the forest. Heavy footsteps, branches breaking under weight that should not exist, the sense of presence just beyond the firelight. I did not sleep. I just waited, wondering what the morning would bring. Day 4 brought worsening conditions. The fire had advanced faster than predicted, driven by winds that shifted every few hours. We were cutting lines constantly, trying to create barriers the flames could not cross. Exhausting work, brutal in the heat and smoke. I left my crew at midday to scout ahead, standard practice for a crew leader. I needed to assess the fire's approach, identify the best places to make our stand. I took my radio, my Pulaski axe, basic supplies. I hiked north, following a ridgeline that gave me a view of the fire front. The smoke was thick enough to taste, gray and choking. Ash fell like snow. The temperature was rising as the flames drew closer. That is when I heard it. A sound that did not belong in the forest. High-pitched, distressed, almost like a child crying, but wrong somehow. Deeper, more resonant. I followed the sound, moving carefully through the smoke. My training screamed at me to turn back, to maintain contact with my crew. But something pulled me forward. Instinct, curiosity, the same recklessness that had defined my career. I emerged into a small clearing and stopped dead. A young Bigfoot stood trapped between three walls of fire, maybe 5 feet tall, covered in reddish-brown hair, bipedal and unmistakably intelligent. It was making that crying sound, panicking, turning in circles trying to find an escape route. One of its feet was burned, bleeding, leaving marks on the scorched ground. The Bigfoot had been fleeing the fire and gotten cut off, boxed in by the flames that were closing fast. We stared at each other. The young Bigfoot went silent, its eyes so human it made my chest tight, locked on mine. I could see fear there, desperation, understanding that death was approaching. Every bit of my training said to back away, to call this in, to let nature take its course. But I thought about Michael, about what I would want someone to do if my son was trapped and terrified. I made a choice in that moment that would define the rest of my life. I dropped my axe, held up my hands in what I hoped was a calming gesture, and stepped forward. The young Bigfoot flinched but did not run. It watched me approach, trembling, making soft sounds of distress. I pointed toward the one gap in the flames, a narrow corridor that might lead to safety. The Bigfoot followed my gesture, looked at the opening, then back at me. I started walking toward the gap. Behind me, I heard footsteps. The young Bigfoot was following. We ran through smoke and heat, the flames roaring on both sides, racing against the fire that wanted to consume us both. I led, and the Bigfoot trusted me. That trust, given so freely in the face of terror, changed everything. We burst through the smoke into clearer air. My lungs burned, my eyes streamed with tears. The young Bigfoot stumbled beside me, limping on its injured foot, making sounds that might have been pain or relief. I pulled out my canteen and poured water over my face, then offered it to the Bigfoot. The creature hesitated, then drank. Its hands, so human, shaped it made me shiver. Fingers, thumbs, palm lines, not animal paws, hands. I keyed my radio, hearing my crew calling for me. I lied easily, years of practice, making deception smooth. Told them I had taken shelter behind a rock formation, was scouting a new route, would return within the hour. I clicked off before they could question me further. The young Bigfoot watched this exchange, head tilted, clearly understanding that the device meant communication. Intelligence showing in every gesture, every focused look. I examined its burned foot using my first aid training. 2nd-degree burns, painful but survivable. I applied antibiotic ointment and wrapped it with gauze from my kit. The Bigfoot let me work, making soft sounds, trusting in a way that seemed impossible. When I finished, it touched my hand gently. Gratitude, clear as words. I looked around, trying to orient myself. We were on a rocky outcrop surrounded by smoke but temporarily safe. Below us, a dark opening, cave entrance, deep enough to show real depth in my flashlight beam. The young Bigfoot saw me looking and made an urgent sound. It moved toward the cave, limping but determined, then looked back at me. Follow, please follow. Every rational thought said no, said, get back to my crew, report this, call for backup. But I thought about that burned foot, about this creature trapped and alone and trusting me. I followed the young Bigfoot into the darkness. The cave opened into a larger system, tunnels branching in multiple directions. Cool air flowed from deeper chambers, carrying scents I did not recognize. Mushrooms, smoke, something else, something alive. The young Bigfoot moved deeper with confidence, navigating turns without hesitation. This was familiar territory. Home. We emerged into a large chamber and I stopped, my flashlight revealing what waited there. 3 adult Bigfoots. Massive, 8 or 9 feet tall, covered in dark hair. 2 females and 1 male. The male enormous, watching me with eyes that held intelligence and clear threat. The young one made sounds, gestures, seemed to be explaining. The adults looked from it to me, processing, evaluating. I stood very still, every survival instinct screaming. I had no weapon that would matter against creatures this size. My radio would not reach through rock. I was alone in a cave with Bigfoots, and nobody knew where I was. The big male stepped forward, and I understood with perfect clarity that he was deciding whether I would live or die. The young Bigfoot moved between us, making urgent sounds, pleading. The male stopped, looked at me, looked at his injured family member. Then, slowly, he nodded. I stayed very still, barely breathing, while the Bigfoot family processed my presence. The big male, the one I started thinking of as Sentinel, circled me slowly. Not aggressive exactly, but assessing, determining threat level. The two females stayed with the young one, examining its burned foot, making sounds that seemed like concern. One touched the gauze I had wrapped, looked at me with what might have been approval. I pulled out my radio slowly, showing it to them. Sentinel's eyes tracked the device. I turned down the volume but left it on, letting them hear the crackling voices of my crew searching for me. Then I clipped it back to my belt. They seemed to understand. Communication device, connection to others of my kind. I pointed to myself, held up one finger. Alone. Then I pointed outside, toward where the fire burned, made a pushing motion. Danger, had to stay here. Sentinel watched these gestures with focused attention. Then he made his own, pointed to his family, pointed to the deeper caves, pointed to the entrance. Same, trapped by fire, waiting. We were in the same situation, all of us, human and Bigfoot, sheltering from flames that did not care about species. Huh? The young Bigfoot approached me again, more confident now. It touched my backpack, making questioning sounds. I opened it slowly, showing the contents. Water bottles, energy bars, first aid supplies, basic survival gear. One of the females came closer, examined my supplies with clear interest. She pulled something from a niche in the cave wall. A woven basket, crude but functional, filled with cave mushrooms. She offered them to me. Trade, sharing, social contract. I took a few mushrooms, nodded my thanks. She made a pleased sound. Over the next hour, we settled into an uneasy peace. The Bigfoot family showed me deeper into their shelter, areas where they had clearly been living. Bedding made from moss and bark, dried meat hanging from carved stone hooks, water seeping from cracks in the rock. This was not a random cave. This was a prepared shelter, stocked and maintained. The Bigfoots had fire escape plans that went back generations. Sentinel brought me to a wall where crude paintings told stories, flames consuming forest, Bigfoot families fleeing to high ground, survival through preparation and knowledge of safe places. I understood. They had done this before, many times. They knew how to outlast fire in ways my training manuals never covered. I pulled out my own map, showed Sentinel our location, the fire perimeter, predicted spread patterns. He studied it with clear comprehension, then pointed to areas on the map. Safe zones, escape routes, information that would save my crew. We were teaching each other, sharing knowledge. Two species, impossibly different, united by the need to survive. Outside, the fire roared closer. Inside, we waited together in the darkness, listening to the world burn. Hours passed in the cave. The smoke thickened at the entrance, making it hard to breathe. We moved deeper into the system, away from the heat that radiated through the stone. The Bigfoot family led the way, navigating tunnels with practiced ease. I followed with my flashlight, trying to memorize the route. Professional habit, always know your exits. But I was relying on them completely, trusting Bigfoots to keep me safe while a forest fire raged above. We settled in a deeper chamber where the air was cooler, cleaner. Sentinel posted himself near the entrance, watching, listening. Guard duty. The two females tended to the young one, changing my bandage with careful fingers, applying a paste made from cave plants I did not recognize. I sat against the wall, rationing my water, checking my radio periodically. Mostly static this deep underground, but occasionally broken voices came through. My crew was at the rally point, accounted for, holding position. They thought I was dead or missing. I should have called in, should have reported my location. But what would I say? I am sheltering with Bigfoots in a cave system that is not on any map. Come extract me and document the discovery of the century. I thought about what would happen if I made that call. News crews, scientists, the Forest Service. This family exposed, studied, probably captured, their shelter destroyed by curiosity and cameras. I turned off my radio. One of the females noticed. She tilted her head, questioning. I showed her the dark screen, made a gesture of finality. Off, silent. No more connection to my world. She made a sound like approval, then did something that stopped my breath. She reached out and touched my face gently, fingers tracing my features like a blind person learning through touch. Reading me, understanding me. I held very still, letting her explore. When she finished, she touched her own chest, then mine. Same. Different outside, but same inside where it mattered. The young Bigfoot, foot freshly bandaged, came over and sat beside me. Close enough that I could feel body heat, smell the scent of forest and smoke and something else. Wild, alive, real. It pulled something from a crevice. Dried berries, wrinkled but preserved. Offered them to me with both hands, a gift freely given. I took them, tasted them, sweet and tart. Survival food, carefully stored. We sat together in comfortable silence. Sometimes the young Bigfoot would make sounds, almost like talking, and I would respond even though neither of us understood the words. Communication went beyond language, tone, gesture, presence. Sentinel watched from his post, and I saw his posture relax slightly. I was being accepted. Not as threat, but as guest, maybe even as pack, temporarily adopted in the way mammals do when survival requires cooperation. Above us, the fire burned. Around us, stone protected. Between us, a connection formed that should not have been possible. Night came, measured only by my watch since darkness was constant underground. The Bigfoot family settled for sleep, the two females creating a nest of moss and bark for the young ones. Sentinel remained alert, changing position occasionally but never fully resting. I tried to sleep but could not. My mind kept spinning, processing the impossible. I was sitting in a cave with Bigfoots. Real, breathing, intelligent Bigfoots. Everything I had been taught said this could not exist. Yet here I was, sharing space with a family that showed clear social structure, communication, culture. One of the females noticed my restlessness. She approached, moving quietly despite her size, and gestured for me to follow. Sentinel watched but did not object. She led me deeper into the cave system, down a narrow passage that opened into a smaller chamber. My flashlight revealed walls covered in paintings, more elaborate than the fire survival images. These told a different story. Bigfoot families, dozens of them, living in forests that stretched to the horizon, hunting together, raising young, building shelters, a civilization hidden in plain sight. Then, the paintings changed. Humans appeared, small figures with tools and weapons. The Bigfoot groups got smaller in each image, 10, then 7, then 5. The final paintings showed only single-family units, scattered and hiding. A history of decline, of retreat, of a species being pushed to the edge by another species that did not even know they existed. The female pointed to the last image. One family. Hers. Then she touched her chest, touched the young one's image on the wall, touched my hand. Trust, she seemed to say. Despite everything humans have done, I am trusting you now. I felt the weight of that trust, like physical pressure. This family was choosing to believe I was different, that I would not bring destruction down on them. She led me to another section of wall, handed me a piece of charcoal, gestured for me to draw. I hesitated, then sketched a rough image. A human and a Bigfoot standing side by side. Between them, I drew flames. Above them, I drew clear sky. Survival together, protection. She studied my drawing, then added to it. More humans, more Bigfoots, all small, all scattered. Then she drew a line between them. Separation, safety through distance. I understood. Coexistence required space, required humans not knowing, not encroaching, required me to keep this secret. I touched the drawing, then touched my chest over my heart. Promise, I will not tell. She made a sound like satisfaction, then led me back to the main chamber. The young Bigfoot was curled up sleeping, its burned foot carefully positioned. Sentinel had moved closer to his family, protective even in rest. I found a spot against the wall, finally able to relax. They had shown me their history, their fears, their hope that I was different. I would not betray that hope. Dawn broke somewhere above us, though no light reached our shelter. My watch read 6 in the morning. I'd been missing for 18 hours. My crew would have reported me lost, possibly dead. Search teams might be mobilizing. Sentinel stirred first, moving to the entrance passage to check conditions. He returned, making low sounds. The fire had passed. The immediate danger was over. The family began preparing to leave, gathering their stored supplies, erasing evidence of occupation. I watched them work, fascinated by the organization. Nothing left behind, no trace that they had been here. I checked my radio. Signal was returning as I moved toward the entrance. Voices crackled. Through, search teams coordinating, my crew leader's voice tight with stress. I stood at a junction in the cave system, radio in hand, facing the choice that would define everything. Behind me, the Bigfoot family waited, watching. They could not understand my language, but they understood decision. They had shown me their shelter, their history, their trust. Now, I would show them what kind of human I was. I could call in my exact location, guide rescuers here. They would find me, find evidence of the Bigfoots, find the paintings and the shelter. Scientists would come. The family would be hunted, studied, their refuge destroyed. Or I could lie. I thought about Michael, about the kind of father I had been. Absent, self-focused, more interested in glory than in being present. I thought about what I wanted to teach him about being a man, about making choices that mattered. I keyed the radio. My crew leader's voice came through immediately, relief obvious. "Jack, where are you? Are you injured? What is your status?" I lied smoothly, easily. I had sheltered alone in a cave system, I said. Got disoriented by smoke, took wrong turn, could not find my way back until now. I was heading to the rally point, would arrive within the hour. No mention of the family, no mention of anything that would bring others here. I clicked off the radio and turned around. Sentinel stood directly behind me, close enough to touch. He had heard everything, understood nothing of the words, but everything about the choice. We looked at each other. I saw intelligence in those eyes, recognition, gratitude. He reached out slowly, placed one massive hand on my shoulder. The weight was considerable, the gesture unmistakable. "Thank you." I covered his hand with mine. Promise kept. The family moved toward the exit. I followed, carrying my gear, preparing to return to my world while they disappeared into theirs. At the cave entrance, morning light filtered through smoke and ash. The forest was devastated, black and smoldering. Sentinel paused, turned back to me one final time. He reached into a pouch made from woven bark and pulled something out. He placed it in my hands, closing my fingers around it carefully. A gift. I opened my hands and looked at what Sentinel had given me. A bracelet woven from plant fibers and strands of dark hair, impossibly strong. Attached to it was a wooden pendant, carved with precise detail despite the crude tools that must have made it. The carving showed two figures, one large and one small, standing side by side. A human and a Bigfoot. Between them, marks that might represent fire or danger, or the barrier that separated our species. This was not casual craftsmanship. This was significant, ceremonial, created with intention and meaning. Sentinel touched the pendant, then touched his chest. Then he pointed at me. Us, connected, brothers in survival. The young Bigfoot approached, still limping slightly. It reached out and touched my hand, the same gentle gesture from our first meeting. Goodbye. Thank you. Remember me. I felt my throat tighten. This family had trusted me with their existence, their shelter, their lives. They had treated me with kindness when they could have killed me. They had shared food and space and knowledge, and now they were giving me proof, a tangible object that said this really happened. You did not imagine this. We are real. I slipped the bracelet onto my wrist. It fit perfectly, snug but comfortable. I touched the pendant, then touched my heart. I will remember. I will protect your secret. I will honor what you gave me. Sentinel made a sound, deep and resonant, that seemed like approval. Then he turned and led his family into the burned forest, moving with surprising stealth for creatures so large. Within seconds, they had disappeared, leaving no tracks, no trace. I stood alone at the cave entrance, wearing a bracelet made by Bigfoot hands, carrying a secret that would change everything. I hiked toward the rally point, practicing my story. Separated from crew, sheltered in a cave, survived on emergency rations and cave water. Simple, believable. Nothing about the family that saved my life. My crew spotted me an hour later. They ran toward me, shouting questions, relieved and angry in equal measure. I stuck to my story, repeated it to my crew leader, to the incident commander, to everyone who asked. Yes, I violated protocol. Yes, I took stupid risks. Yes, I almost died. But I was here, alive, and that was what mattered. They took me to the medical tent, checked me for injuries, found only minor smoke inhalation and dehydration. I was lucky, they said. Incredibly lucky. I touched the bracelet under my sleeve and agreed. Lucky. Yes, that was one word for it. That night, lying in my tent at base camp, I pulled out the pendant and studied it in my flashlight beam. The carving was precise, showing details that required skill and patience. The human figure had 5 fingers, the Bigfoot 6 toes. Accurate observation rendered in wood. I had proof of the impossible, and I would never show it to anyone. The investigation into my disappearance took 3 days. Incident commanders interviewed me repeatedly, trying to understand how I got separated, why I lost radio contact, whether I had violated safety protocols. I answered their questions with partial truths, admitting to mistakes while hiding the real story. They concluded I had been reckless, pushing too far ahead, taking unnecessary risks, failing to maintain proper communication. All true. I accepted a formal reprimand without argument. I accepted demotion from crew leader to regular crew member. I accepted everything they threw at me, because none of it mattered anymore. Something had changed inside me during those 18 hours underground. The need to prove myself, to chase glory, to be the best, it had just evaporated. I had met beings who lived without rank or recognition, who measured worth by how they protected their family. That lesson had gone deeper than any training. My crew noticed the change immediately. Jack Morrison, who had never backed down from a challenge, now worked carefully, deliberately. Who had pushed hardest and fastest, now moved with consideration for others. Who had chased every dangerous assignment, now suggested safer approaches. Some thought the close call had scared me. Others thought I was damaged, traumatized, no longer fit for hotshot work. Let them think what they wanted. I knew the truth. I finished the fire season in September of 1984. When it was over, I turned down reassignment to another hotshot crew. Instead, I took a position in fire prevention education, teaching communities how to protect themselves. Less glory, lower pay, no more adrenaline rushes or last-minute saves, but more impact, real impact, teaching people to prepare, to create defensible space, to understand fire behavior. Saving lives through knowledge rather than heroics. The bracelet stayed on my wrist, hidden under my sleeve. I wore it constantly, removing it only to shower. The wood pendant pressed against my skin, a reminder of promises made and kept. I called Linda in October, asked if I could have Michael more often. She was suspicious at first, protective of the routine we had established. But I persisted, showing up on time, following through on commitments, being present in ways I never had been. Michael was cautious, testing whether this version of his father would last. I did not blame him. I'd given him plenty of reasons not to trust me. We started with day visits, trips to the park, throwing a baseball, simple activities that required presence. I put away my work thoughts, my fire strategies, everything that had consumed me. I focused on him. Only him. One afternoon, Michael asked about the bracelet. He had noticed it during one of our visits, asked where I got it. A friend, I said. Someone who taught me important things. He accepted that, asked no more questions. But I saw him looking at it sometimes, curious about this object his father never removed. I wondered if someday I would tell him the truth. The months became years. 1985 turned into 86, then 87. I built a life around presence instead of absence, around teaching instead of proving. My work with fire prevention took me to communities across Montana, helping people understand how to protect their homes and forests. I was good at it, patient, clear, willing to listen instead of just talking. skills I had learned from a Bigfoot family who communicated through gesture and patience. Michael and I developed a real relationship, slowly, carefully. He was 9 when I started coaching his little league team, 10 when I attended every single one of his school concerts, 11 when he told me he was glad I had changed, that he liked this version of me better. That conversation happened on a camping trip, just the two of us in the Bitterroots. Not near the Marble Creek site, I avoided that area, but close enough that I thought about the family every day of that trip. Michael asked me directly, "What happened to you, Dad? After that fire in '84, you came back different. Everyone says so." I almost told him. The words were right there, ready to spill out. But I remembered Sentinel's trust, the female showing me the paintings of decline, the need for their family to remain hidden. "I learned some things," I said instead, "about what matters, about being present instead of chasing glory, about protecting things instead of taking credit for them." He accepted that answer, but I saw him looking at the bracelet again. He knew there was more. He just did not push. Linda remarried in 1988, a good man who was kind to Michael. I attended the wedding, genuinely happy for her. She deserved stability and love. I had never given her either. After the ceremony, she pulled me aside. "I do not know what happened to you, Jack, but thank you for becoming the father Michael needed. Better late than never. Better late than never." Yes. I returned to the Marble Creek site every year, hiking in during summer when the forest had recovered. The cave entrance was still there, hidden but accessible to someone who knew where to look. I never went inside. That felt like violation. But I left small offerings at the entrance, stones stacked in patterns, wildflowers in season, quiet acknowledgement that I remembered. I never saw signs that the Bigfoot family still used the shelter. Maybe they had moved on, found safer territory deeper in wilderness. Maybe they had died, that one family, the last of their kind in the region. I did not know, but I kept checking, kept protecting, kept the location secret even in my fire prevention work, steering conservation efforts to include that watershed without explaining exactly why it mattered. The years accumulated. Michael graduated high school, went to college, got married. I was there for everything, present in ways my own father had never been. The bracelet stayed on my wrist through all of it, hidden but constant. 2010 brought changes I had not anticipated. I was 57, still working in fire education, still visiting the Marble Creek site annually. Michael was 32, married, about to make me a grandfather for the first time. Life was good, quiet, meaningful in ways my younger self would have scorned. Then I started forgetting things, small things at first, where I put my keys, names of people I had known for years, directions to places I had been 100 times. I dismissed it as normal aging. Everyone forgets things. Everyone loses sharpness after 50. But it got worse. I would start sentences and lose the words, find myself in rooms with no memory of why I went there, look at my calendar and not recognize my own handwriting. Michael noticed during a visit. "Dad, you told me that story 3 times today. The same story, word for word. Are you okay?" I told him I was fine, just tired. Too much work, but I was not fine. The diagnosis came in 2012. Early onset dementia, progressing faster than normal. The neurologist showed me brain scans, pointed to areas of deterioration, explained what was happening to my memory and cognition. "How long do I have?" I asked. "Hard to say. Years, not decades. You will lose short-term memory first, then long-term. Eventually, you will not recognize your own family." I thought about the bracelet on my wrist, about the story only I knew, about promises made to a Bigfoot family that trusted me with their existence. If I forgot, the story would die with me. The location would be lost. The promises would dissolve into confusion and blank spaces in my mind. I started writing everything down, detailed accounts of the Marble Creek fire, what happened in the cave, every moment with the Bigfoot family. I wrote in notebooks I kept hidden, documenting while I still remembered clearly. Michael's daughter was born in 2013. I held her in the hospital, looked at her tiny face, and thought about legacy. What we pass down, what we protect, what we teach the next generation about being human. I wanted to tell Michael, wanted to share the truth before my mind failed completely, but I was terrified. What if he did not believe me? What if he thought the dementia was already stealing my memories, replacing them with fantasies? Worse, what if he did believe me and felt obligated to do something, to investigate, to prove it, to turn my secret into discovery? I kept silent, wrote in my notebooks, wore the bracelet, visited the Marble Creek site when I still could, while I still remembered how to find it. The dementia progressed. 2015, I retired from work, unable to maintain the focus my job required. 2018, I moved into a cabin Michael had prepared, close to his family, where they could check on me daily. I lived in growing fog, memories slipping away like smoke. But I held on to two things, the bracelet and the notebooks. I knew I was running out of time. 2024 brought the crisis I had been dreading. Michael came to help me pack belongings, preparing to sell the cabin and move me to assisted living. My memory was failing fast. I could not remember what I ate for breakfast, could not always remember Michael's name. But I remembered Sentinel, remembered the young Bigfoot with the burned foot, remembered 18 hours in a cave with a family that changed my life. Michael was sorting through a box of my possessions when he found it. The bracelet. I had taken it off for a shower and forgotten to put it back on, a mistake I never made when my mind was clearer. He held it up, examining the woven fibers and carved pendant. "Dad, what is this? Where did you get it?" I looked at the bracelet, and everything came flooding back with painful clarity. The fire. The young Bigfoot trapped by flames. Sentinel's hand on my shoulder. The promise I made. "I need to tell you something," I said, "before I forget. Before it is gone." Michael sat down, still holding the bracelet. "Okay? Tell me." And I did. Everything. The whole story, starting with the Marble Creek fire and ending with the gift Sentinel pressed into my hands. I talked for 3 hours, Michael listening without interruption, his expression cycling between skepticism and wonder. When I finished, he sat in silence for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "Dad, this is impossible. Bigfoots do not exist. Everyone knows that. I know how it sounds. I know what science says, but I was there, Michael. I lived it. That bracelet was made by Bigfoot hands. Those are Bigfoot hairs woven into the fibers." He examined the bracelet more closely. "It could be anything. Old artifact, something you found. Your memory is not reliable anymore, Dad. You know that." The words hurt, but I understood. I would not believe me either. "I have notebooks," I said. "Detailed accounts I wrote years ago when my memory was still good. They are in the safe deposit box at the bank along with the key to the location. Everything is documented." Michael looked torn between concern and curiosity. "You have been keeping this secret for 40 years. I promised them. The Bigfoot family. They trusted me to protect them, to keep their shelter hidden. Breaking that promise would make everything they taught me meaningless. What did they teach you? That presence matters more than proof. That protection is more important than discovery. That some things deserve to stay hidden because exposure would destroy them." Michael stood, paced to the window. "This is crazy, Dad. You are asking me to believe in Bigfoot. I am asking you to believe in me, in the change you saw in me after '84. Something happened that summer that made me different, better, present for you in ways I never was before." He turned back, tears in his eyes. "I do not know what to believe. Then just promise me one thing. If anything happens to me, get the notebooks. Read them. Then decide." Michael took the safe deposit key. I watched him slip it into his wallet, saw the conflict on his face. He did not want to believe his father was delusional, but he did not want to believe in Bigfoot either. Impossible situation. We did not talk about it again for several weeks. Michael visited regularly, helping me manage daily tasks as my memory continued failing. Sometimes I forgot the conversation had happened. Sometimes I remembered with perfect clarity and wondered if I had made a terrible mistake. Then, one afternoon, Michael arrived with a folder. He sat across from me, opened it, and pulled out my notebooks. All of them. Pages and pages of detailed accounts, written in handwriting that was clearly mine, dated from 1985 through 2012. I got them from the bank, he said quietly. I have been reading them for a week. Every page, every detail. And he pulled out his phone, showed me search results. Bigfoot sightings in the Bitterroot range, concentrated around the Marble Creek area. Reports dating back decades, all dismissed as hoaxes or misidentifications. But the descriptions were consistent. Large, bipedal, intelligent, avoiding human contact. I looked at maps too, he continued. The watershed you have been fighting to protect for 40 years. It includes the area where you disappeared. You have been working to keep that specific region undeveloped without ever explaining why. I was keeping my promise. Michael set down the phone. I do not know if I believe in Bigfoot, Dad, but I believe something happened to you in that cave. Something real enough to change your entire life. Real enough that you have protected it for 4 decades. He picked up the bracelet, studying the pendant. This is not Native American design. I checked with experts. The weaving technique does not match any known tradition. The wood carving shows tool marks that do not correspond to any modern or historical methods. What are you saying? I am saying I do not have proof this came from Bigfoot, but I do not have proof it did not. And I have 40 years of your changed behavior, your conservation work, your absolute refusal to reveal that location. Michael looked at me directly. If I accept this, if I believe you, what are you asking me to do? Keep the promise. Protect the location. Make sure that watershed stays preserved. And when I am gone, when my memory is completely gone, hold on to this story. Do not publish it. Do not prove it. Just protect it. He was quiet for a long time. Finally, he nodded. Okay. I will protect it, not because I am sure I believe in Bigfoot, but because I believe in you, in the man you became after that fire. That is real, whatever caused it. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. We sat together, father and son, connected by a secret that might be truth or might be delusion. But the promise was real. The protection was real. That was enough. I am writing this final entry in late 2024. My name is Jack Morrison, and soon I will not remember that. I will not remember Michael or my granddaughter or the life I built after Marble Creek. The dementia is taking everything, piece by piece. But right now, in this moment, I remember Sentinel. I remember the young Bigfoot with the burned foot, the gentle females, the cave paintings showing history and loss. I remember the choice I made to protect instead of expose. I am glad I made that choice. People might read this and think I wasted an opportunity, that I should have documented everything, proved Bigfoot exists, changed science forever. They will say I was selfish, keeping the discovery to myself. They do not understand. Sentinel and his family were not discoveries. They were people. Different from us, yes, but conscious, intelligent, deserving of privacy and dignity. They were a family trying to survive, in a world that had taken everything from them. I met them at their most vulnerable. Trapped by fire, injured, desperate, they could have killed me. They chose kindness instead. They shared food and shelter and knowledge. They trusted me with their existence. Betraying that trust for fame or scientific advancement would have made me the kind of human they had every reason to fear. The bracelet sits on my wrist as I write this. 40 years old now, the fibers worn but still strong. The wooden pendant smooth from constant touch. Physical proof that I'm not crazy, that this really happened. Michael has promised to continue the protection. He has the location, the notebooks, the full story. When I'm gone, he will visit the Marble Creek site, maintain the conservation efforts, ensure the watershed stays protected. The Bigfoot family, if they still exist, will never know I kept my promise. They will never know I spent 40 years protecting their shelter, steering development away from their territory, teaching others to respect wilderness without explaining exactly why. That is fine. Promises are not about recognition. They are about character, about being someone who keeps their word even when no one is watching. I learned that from Sentinel, from a Bigfoot who showed me, through patient example, what it means to protect your family, to pass down knowledge, to survive with dignity in a world that does not value you. Those lessons saved my life. Not in the cave during the fire, but after. When I returned to the surface and had to figure out how to be a better person, a better father. The Bigfoots showed me what mattered: presence, protection, living truthfully instead of hiding behind achievement. I became someone Michael could respect, someone who showed up, someone who kept promises. That is the real gift Sentinel gave me. Not the bracelet, though I treasure it, but the lesson about what makes a life meaningful. Some things are worth more than proof, worth more than fame. This is Michael Morrison writing now. My father died 6 months ago, in the spring of 2025, peacefully, in his sleep, with the bracelet still on his wrist. His last clear words were about the fire, about Sentinel, about promises kept. I am 47 years old, and I still do not know if I believe in Bigfoot. I have read every notebook, examined every detail, researched sightings and reports and scientific opinions. The evidence is inconclusive. It always will be. But I believe in my father, in the change that overtook him after the summer of 1984. That was real, measurable, witnessed by everyone who knew him. Jack Morrison went into the Marble Creek fire as a reckless glory seeker who barely knew his own son. He came out as a patient, present man who spent 40 years teaching, protecting, showing up. That transformation was not gradual, it was immediate and complete. Something happened in that cave, something powerful enough to reshape a life. Whether it was Bigfoot or profound isolation or a psychological break that forced self-examination, the result was the same. My father became better. I visited the Marble Creek site, found the cave entrance exactly where his notebooks described. I stood there with climbing gear and lights, ready to descend, ready to finally know the truth. But I heard something, a sound in the forest, probably wind, probably my imagination. But it made me stop, made me think about what my father had asked: protect, not prove, honor, not expose. I sealed the entrance again, left wildflowers among the rocks, the way he always did, walked away without looking inside. My daughter Emily, she is 12 now, old enough to understand complex ideas. I've started teaching her about wilderness preservation, about respecting places we do not fully understand. I've not told her about her grandfather's story, not yet. But someday when she is ready, I will give her the notebooks. Let her read about the summer of 1984. Let her decide what to believe and what to protect. The bracelet sits in a safe deposit box now, preserved and protected. Sometimes I take it out and examine the weaving, the pendant, the craftsmanship that does not match any known tradition. I hold it and wonder. The conservation group my father worked with secured permanent protection for the Marble Creek watershed. Federal wilderness designation, no development, minimal human access. That area will remain wild, remain protected, regardless of what does or does not live there. My father's real legacy is not the story of Bigfoot. It is the lesson about what we choose to protect, about keeping promises even when they are hard, about measuring life by presence and connection rather than achievement and proof. He taught me those lessons, not through lectures, but through 40 years of changed behavior, through showing up, through being the father I needed instead of the hero he wanted to be. Whether Bigfoot exists or not, that lesson is real. That transformation matters. I wear my father's wedding ring now, the one he stopped wearing after the divorce, but kept in a drawer for 40 years. I think about marriage, about my wife and daughter, about the choices that define us. My father chose work over family until something changed him. I am choosing differently because of what he taught me. Emily asks about her grandfather sometimes. What was he like? What did he do? Why do we visit that particular spot in the mountains every year? I tell her he was a firefighter who learned that protecting things matters more than conquering them. That he spent his life teaching people how to coexist with wilderness instead of dominating it. That he believed some places should remain mysterious. She accepts these answers, but I see curiosity in her eyes. The same curiosity that drove my father into that cave in 1984. The same curiosity that could lead her to ask harder questions. When that day comes, I will be ready. I will give her the notebooks and let her read her grandfather's words. I will show her the bracelet and explain what he believed it meant. I will take her to the Marble Creek site and let her stand at the sealed entrance. Then I will give her the same choice my father gave me: believe or do not believe. But either way, protect, keep the promise, honor the trust, because that is what matters, not proving or disproving, not satisfying curiosity or achieving fame, but maintaining integrity. Keeping promises made by a dying man to a family that may or may not exist. I have added my own entries to my father's notebooks, documenting the years since his death, the continued protection of the watershed, the small signs I sometimes see near the cave entrance, stones stacked in patterns that might be natural or might be deliberate, prints in the mud that are probably bare or probably not. I do not investigate these signs. I document and move on, maintaining observation without interference, respecting boundaries. My father spent 40 years living the lessons Bigfoot taught him. Now, I am doing the same, passing them to the next generation. Emily will pass them to her children. The story will continue, protected and private, honored without being exploited. Maybe that is the real gift. Not proof of Bigfoot, but a framework for living better. For choosing protection over conquest. For keeping promises even when they are inconvenient. For being present instead of chasing glory. These lessons came from somewhere. From a cave during a fire. From hours spent with creatures that might have been real or might have been profound psychological transformation rendered as narrative. Does it matter which? The change was real. The improved life was real. The 40 years of kept promises were real. My father died believing he had met Bigfoot, died protecting a family that trusted him, died keeping a promise that defined his entire life after 31. I am keeping that promise now. My daughter will keep it after me. Not because we have proof, but because some things are worth protecting regardless of evidence. Some mysteries deserve to stay mysterious. Some stories deserve to remain untold except within families who understand their value. This is ours.